Lowriders. We had them lowriders today.
Comfy couch.
Comfy couch, lowriders.
You don't like sitting still?
I mean, I'm a tall dude.
Bro, you are not that tall. 6 foot is not a
Hey,
tall dude.
don't screw me out of my inch. I'm 6'1". Okay? 6'1".
Allegedly.
Golly.
Allegedly. We'll go with that.
Why you hating on my 1 inch?
I'm not.
Okay.
You about 6 foot.
Oh my God, 6'1".
Okay. Allegedly. What's up, everybody? I'm your girl, Michael, and this is my husband, Way.
What's good, y'all?
Help it. Welcome back to another episode of Sipping with the Simpkins.
Yes.
Today, we're going to be talking about what we didn't talk about, but should have. We're talking about what we didn't talk about, but should have.
As youngsters, what you sipping on?
In the early years. Bubbly. Sparkling
Bubbly?
water. Yes.
Okay. I got
thirsty
a little
too.
latte. Is this a latte? I got a little latte. So.
Cheers.
Salute.
Salute. So, let's get to it. What conversations did we avoid early on? Thinking about parenting, ideals, money, intimacy, and our future.
Well, I'm not sure we avoided conversations. We just didn't think to have them. I think everything you mentioned, we could have talked about. Money, future, all of that. We didn't talk about any of the things you just mentioned in a relationship. And I'm not sure that we were thinking long term to begin with. I don't remember going into a relationship with you and thinking, yeah, I'm going to be married to her for 20 some years. Like that wasn't it. When you're young, you don't even think about that stuff. You're just in a relationship and you care
That's
about
an
folks.
interesting point.
And you don't really think about this is going to be my last one, you know? But so I think prior to marriage, though, we could have had a conversation on future. What do you want to be when you grow up, so to speak? You know, that type of talk and where you see yourself and intimacy and like all of that stuff. How many kids you want to have? Like there was a lot of stuff we could have talked about. And we didn't. And I don't think it was a lack of wanting to talk about it. I just think we just didn't think about it. Thinking back, it's like, yeah, we probably should have scheduled time to have these conversations to see if there's any wrinkles and whatever.
Yeah. I think the operative word, I would agree with you mostly. I don't think it was a matter of avoidance. It was probably a matter of, again, to your point, just not really thinking about it. And what we've talked about before is having solid marital examples to kind of teach and guide and tell us like things to prepare for, think about, consider, talk about. So it wasn't really on our radar, but not just that all of these things could we have talked about, we most certainly should have talked about. The two that rise to the top to me in terms of most critical, or I'm going to say my top three, is probably the parenting, the intimacy, and our future. What that looks like, because I feel like those three things have been at the...
Well, they shape the future.
Those have caused the most friction throughout the years in our marriage. Parenting, intimacy, and our future. Where we want to go, what we want to do. For a long time, I wanted to move from Ohio. You were really content with Ohio. You stayed long term with a couple of companies until this opportunity came. And here we are in Wisconsin, of all places.
I got you close to water.
You did. Yes, I've always said I want to be close to the water, but I also said palm trees, and most days of the year are sunny, and that's not Wisconsin. However, I've been here for a year and a half, and it's not been exactly what I thought it was going to be.
We made some adjustments, but to get back on the subject here, I think we could have definitely had some conversations about what long-term relationship looks like for us, and we didn't. So thinking back to the young couples out there, it's important to make sure you have those conversations at some point especially
We're
if you
not to the
start to talking
reflection.
about marriage.
Yeah. So, and it's also interesting that you said when you went into marriage, you didn't think about this is the last one.
No. When I went into a relationship, not marriage.
Well, we're
Once I
talking about this relationship.
once I'm saying that when we started a relationship, before I even proposed to you, I didn't go into our relationship like this is going to be my last relationship ever. I never even thought about it. Didn't give it two thoughts.
Right. But
However,
once you decided that you were going to get married,
once I proposed and to you, then I went into it with the idea of this is long term, this is marriage, this is long term. I'm not going into it thinking about I'm getting married again. Like it's one time, that's it, forever. But I do think after I proposed and you accepted, there should have been some conversations
we
about
should have
stuff.
had those
Yeah, for
conversations.
sure.
I wish that we would have been mature enough, aware enough to be able to have some of those conversations. How do you think those silences, those lack of conversations show up or showed up later in the marriage?
Well, I think we talked about it on a previous episode. You come home with cars that your spouse may not have wanted you to get or thought you would be getting, or, you know, instead of having those conversations about what money looks like and how you're going to spend it and whatnot, I think there's been some conversations around child rearing and how who's going to be the disciplinary person, or if you've thought that in situations that I was too strict, too hard on our son during the disciplinary process, and you might have been a little bit softer or took a different approach. Those were things that we never talked about, like, well, how are you going to parent this? What if this happens? Or, and even in those moments where things happen with our son, we didn't take a pause or a timeout to discuss it first before
Yeah.
we either disciplined him or had conversations with him about whatever happened. We probably should have done that just so that we could be on the same page about our approach to it.
Yeah. I think for me, when it comes to the parenting part, I, and this is just my perspective, I don't know, like I was the disciplinary. And this is where I think the lack of communication lies because in my mind, you weren't present. You worked a lot. And so a lot of the friction came from when you were there, you wanted to intervene on some disciplinary situations. And I didn't feel like it was appropriate because he and I already had sort of this established rapport, expectation, rules that were pre-existing outside of you that maybe you weren't aware of. And so if you didn't like it, like I had already taught or allowed the behavior. And so for you to kind of intercede on that just didn't seem appropriate to me. Additionally, I had this idea. There's some parents who say, and I've heard, you better stop or I'm going to tell your dad when he gets home. That wasn't me. I'm like, he needs to respect me because one, his dad's not home a lot. And I just wanted him just to respect me, have more respect for you or be more fearful of you. Like, no, like he needs to have that same level of respect and fear of me as he would for you. Not that I wanted my son to be fearful of me, but it's just this level of respect and expectation that you have of and for your parents, that there's just certain shit that you just don't do. And so I just wanted to establish that outside of you.
No, we get it. But also, too, I feel like when those times happened, you didn't communicate to me to tell me about the decision you made for whatever it was. By the time I found out about it and I wanted to react, it was like if I would have known that this is the way you already handled it and this is your logic or your thinking behind the way you handled it, then I might not have even said anything. I think through time we've gotten better at communicating about different issues with regard to our son. And so when you tell me this is what I said, this is how I handled it or whatever, I may not say anything because it's done. Which before I felt like I needed to say something because maybe I didn't know if it was done or not.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you telling me about it was the cue to jump in there and intervene and have that conversation with him or whatever. So you live, you learn.
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten better at that part, you know?
For sure. But also our circumstances have changed significantly too. Because I think in the early years, when we were really raising him, we had a lot of other stuff that just made communication difficult. There was some friction for, about a whole lot of other stuff. Lack of maturity, awareness just made our communication difficult in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think over the years, developing a better level of communication has certainly helped. And also learning how and when to communicate certain things. Because I know, at least with me, for you, there's certain things that I know I got to get you at a certain time because your response may be different if I just give it to you like in the moment, maybe. Like I've just kind of learned like how and when I should say certain things to you.
Makes sense. I think too, when thinking back on how we made decisions with our son, I feel like that's the reason he comes to you now before he comes to me about stuff, because over the years you've built that rapport and that relationship when I wasn't around. So now that, I may be present a lot more and he's a little bit older, you're the first person he goes to most times. And sometimes I used to feel like I'm in the dark. Like, well, why does he come to me? But I quickly realized it doesn't matter if he goes to me or if he goes to you, as long as he goes to one of us.
Yeah.
And then long as what, you tell me or I tell you, whatever that conversation was like, and we could talk about it and address it appropriately.
Yeah, I remember you had a little lump in your throat about that, but it wasn't even just about like he comes to me. It was just that I was there a lot more than you were.
Yeah,
and
but since the age of
also,
cell phones, you can pick a phone up and call somebody.
and
But
I
I don't think
also
that's an excuse. But go ahead.
and I also feel like I communicate differently. Like I ask my son a lot of questions. How you doing? How you feeling? What you doing? What's going on? Where you going? Who you with? What they doing? Where their mom? Are they married? Are they, like I ask a lot of questions. And I've always told him, like, approached my parenting with, you can say whatever you want to say to me as long as you say it respectfully. You can say whatever you want to say as long as you say it respectfully to anybody. I feel like I was really intentional about that communication, mostly because the way that I grew up was that you were silenced as a kid. You really didn't have a voice. You did what you were told.
You weren't even in the room
with adults. It was do as I say, not as I do. And people didn't tell you the why. And sometimes the why is helpful. It's like, help me to understand why I can't do this, or just that open line of communication. It was just don't do this because I said don't do it. And I just never appreciated that because there was I had so much voice and so much that I wanted to say and be able to share. And I'm just like, I'm not going to parent our son like that. Whereas I think we mentioned too before, you're the type of parent that you're like, well, this is how I raised, and this is how my mom did, or so I'm going to do it the exact same because look at me, I'm fine. And I'm like, yeah, I might be okay, but there's some things about me that could be better. Additionally, I want my son to be even better. So I think
for sure.
Those are the conversations that we should have had. How did the unspoken expectations affect us?
Well, I think they caused rift. They caused there were some differences, and like everything that we've been talking about, whenever it reared its head, it was always a difference in an approach between me and you, because we didn't talk about things before when we should have. So I think it shows up when you would handle a situation or I would handle a situation and one of us is like, oh, well, you should have did this differently. Well, had we had a conversation beforehand, then maybe that parenting would have been different, or maybe the money situation or whatever I spent money on would have been different. Your approach wasn't what I would have done had I known that you were going to have this conversation with him before you let me know that it was a thing, right? So all of those things happen. I think it just boils down to communication. The longer you live with somebody, the more you communicate better, or at least you should. And you get out of that single mind frame of just dealing with the situation right then and there. And we'll use our son as an example. If something happens today, before I say something to him about it, I might run it by you and say, hey, this is what happened. I'm going to have a conversation with him, and this is what I'm going to say. And I think that's the best way to handle it, because I may not have the right approach. I was going to say something different, or what I'm saying.
That's when he's being a nice guy. There's,
I'm a nice guy.
there's plenty of times that you're like, I'm talking to my son. I don't got to tell you what we're talking about.
Nah, I don't
Or
remember
I'm
the
getting ready
last
to talk
time
to
I
my,
said that.
or I'm
That
talking
was
to
the
my
old
son.
me.
Or I'm talking to my son. You don't got to be around. I can talk to him without you being around. You don't got to know everything that we're talking about. It's
But
about
I'm
the
saying,
85%.
listen, all true stuff.
And
But
I think,
however, there are situations and circumstances where there should be a conversation between us on how we handle certain things. And those are conversations that should be had. If it's a conversation about something completely different, that a man-to-man conversation or something like that, then that's not something that I necessarily need to be like, hold on, let me make sure that me and your mom's on the same page about it. It just depends. But I'm open to making sure we have a conversation before things are addressed so that we're on the same page.
I feel like it's mostly your defense mechanism because you have felt like you were in the dark and he comes to me. So when you get the opportunity to have these little one-on-ones with him where you can exclude me, I feel like you might want to take full advantage of them, if we're being honest. Do you think that any of this changed our trust or closeness? Like those unspoken expectations, how did it change our trust or closeness?
I'll let you answer first this one. I don't think it affected our trust. I mean, it's stuff,
In so many
you
ways.
build. Go ahead. Well,
Yeah, I feel like it trusted, especially with intimacy. I think also with the parenting, because your ideals about parenting were very different from mine and how I wanted to raise him. And so, and then also because our relationship was sort of tumultuous in the early years, I didn't trust you to parent him. I didn't respect you as his father, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, hey, that's what the podcast is about.
Yeah, like if I'm
speak your
just
truth.
being, and like I can see how that shook out like today, and I'm not proud of that.
A lot of young moms take that same approach. So
That was the point in time of our lives where I just didn't trust you as a father, and the way that you handled certain situations, just I really feel like that the friction between you and I really impacted my trust for you. And so I probably undermined you in a lot of situations because of that mistrust.
okay, well
And it also caused a lot of division between us. I think it also kept us sort of divisive for a long, long time, for sure. Yeah.
there's a lesson in that.
But see how different, yeah, there's a lesson.
There's a lesson in that.
And it goes back to the very first question, really, about having those open lines of communication with your partner about what expectations are in terms of parenting, money, intimacy, like all of those things. Because had we talked about it before we had children, then maybe our decisions would have been a lot different.
Oh, for sure.
In having a child,
Yeah, right,
or
right.
also how we raised him, because it probably was very confusing for him, for our son, because I'm sure he's seen some of that, which may also be a reason that he comes to me and not to you, because he saw how the decisions were being made, who was making the decisions, and maybe he saw some of that undermining. And so, like, it's not cool.
Until he sits on the couch, we won't know.
Yes, it's not cool. And I see it now because I see how that transpired, and it was not the right thing to do, but it was the right thing for me in that space because I was going to protect my kid by all means necessary, and that was my means of doing that.
Yeah, I feel you.
How do we repair?
Conversations. I think it's platforms like this where you can be open and honest and have communication about times you messed up. And I think you first got to admit that, hey, I was wrong in my thinking. I was young. I was immature. I was this. I was that. Might not have been the right decision. And as you get older, you mature, and you're okay with that. And I'm okay with that because I'm not a perfect person. So when you admit, like, oh yeah, I might have did this, that, and the third, that's fine because I'm not judging you. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all grow up. We all got to face the music when it comes to that, and we're not all perfect. I think the more you learn about somebody, the more you're able to communicate with somebody about where your flaws are and how you could have done better, and you're striving to get better.
Hopefully, it's, as the old saying goes, if you know better, you do better.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
That's always,
and you know, hindsight's always 20/20, so we can all look back and say, man, I could have handled that situation better.
Yeah.
Or, man, what was I thinking at the time? Oh, I might have hurt somebody's feelings, or I might have spoke without thinking first because you're a hothead, or whatever the case may be. It happens. And I think podcasts like these will help somebody out there, hopefully, that may see this, that are a little younger, maybe in that hothead phase, and feel like I can say what I want when I want to, and I don't care. Like, no, you should care, you know. And if you value people's opinion and you value the relationship that you're in with somebody, then you should care. You should be slow to speak and listen a little bit more, but not listen to think about what you're going to say next, but listen to understand, at least from a person's perspective, as to what it is that they're actually saying or trying to get you to understand. So again, that's growth. So
It's interesting that you say not say what you want to say. And I think that's another communication challenge that we have even today, because from me, I feel like we should be able to talk about whatever, say whatever, and like just be real in that space. And he communicates where he doesn't say certain things until it blows up. He's afraid. And I'm like, tell me. And I remember many years ago, you used to say you couldn't say what you wanted to say because you said that you would hurt my feelings. And I'm like, well, first of all, that speaks volumes that you want to say something that would hurt my feelings. Like, why do you feel about me that you would want to say something or need to say
because I
something
know
that would
me,
hurt
I
my
know me, and
feelings?
if I'm in that hothead phase and I'm gonna pop off and say something, I'm better off not saying anything because I don't want to hurt people's feelings, and that's probably
But
one of the
you,
best decisions that I practiced.
but
Slow to speak.
also you felt like you were bottling things up, and then you did eventually blow up. So those things eventually came out.
It's not.
Me, I'm like, let's talk about it. Like, put it on the table. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what you want. Specifically about some of the topics we've talked about: parenting, intimacy, money, future. Like, if there's something that's on your mind and something that you want to say, like, to me, it's like, get it out on the table. Let's talk through it and let's work through it and not sweep it under the rug. And he's more of a sweep it under the rug and behind, like, if you don't talk about it, it don't exist. And I'm like, let's talk about it. And he's like, I just don't want to talk about it. It
I
ain't no
think
need to
I
talk
think you
about
say
it.
that about me, and I'm gonna argue back that that's not what it is. I feel like when things happen, it's fair to myself to not be speaking about it premature. Like, I might want to sit on something and sit with something and determine what my approach needs to be. Now, however long that is however long that is. You, on the other hand, would like to address it right then and there. You want to talk about it. You want to, and I'm like, everybody's not ready to talk about stuff right then and there. Like,
And I also
you
want to
gotta
be
give
able to
people,
just,
you gotta give people time. You gotta let people be ready when they're ready, not when you're ready. You know what I'm saying?
that's
Like,
fair,
that's
but we never circle back, because then it becomes this thing where if I let it die down, and there's still conversations that exist like this today, but if I let it go die down, then everything's on the up and up. Then if I bring it up, then he'll say, "Why are you trying to start a fight?" That would be your thing. Why are you trying to start a fight? And it's like, we didn't finish that. That conversation for me was incomplete. It's
it's
like
your
we meant
approach.
to bring it up, because if you're in the moment, he doesn't want to talk about it. If you're not in the moment, you let it die down. Everything is cool. Why are you bringing it up now? So I think that's still some of the things in terms of communication that we're working through, that we struggle with in our styles of communication,
It's
to
different style.
communicate and when to communicate. So it's sort of
And that's a
going,
relationship,
that's
right?
an
Like,
ongoing
that's
thing.
if we're
For
being
sure.
honest, we all deal with that.
For sure.
This is what we're talking about.
So what's one conversation couples should have before marriage?
Dreams and aspirations. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Type conversations. You know,
What
I
if you're
feel like,
already grown up?
listen, we're all growing up. I still have conversations like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Okay.
I'm not where I'm at, where I want to grow. We're all chasing that. And unless you're somewhere retired, then you could say, well, I've grown up. You should all still have conversations about money, still have conversations about
One
future.
conversation.
Oh, money ruins probably more conversations than, more relationships than anything else in the world.
Yeah.
Money's got to be at the top of that list.
That's funny that you say that, because I feel like as much as there's been times that we've struggled a bit with money, that's not been like the top thing. That's been our
Not for
thing.
us.
For us, yes.
We may
So
be different, but
my one conversation that I think you should have before marriage, I have two. So I'm going to say parenting. but also intimacy. I think that's huge and needs to be discussed. And I don't think we talk about it enough. And it shows its ugly head in lots of different ways. And I think it's critical because intimacy is important on so many levels for a lasting, healthy relationship.
Okay. I'm gonna say money, but again, all three,
You already said
parenting, intimacy, money, should be talked about. Yeah. So look, I think that might be it.
That's it.
I know we was off a few weeks, but we're back at it. It's been a lot going on.
Like,
And
share, subscribe, comment, holla back. Let us know your challenges.
definitely.
What's working for you? What hasn't worked for you? What's your number one conversation that you think marriages or couples should have before they get married?
And how you feeling about the podcast? I mean, are there subjects that you want us to address or comments that you want to say? I know we received a lot of text messages and phone calls, which are all great, but definitely a comment on the thread itself, you know, in Substack, and let us know, you know, so we can kind of get that conversation going too. So we appreciate all of you for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Peace.